Back at the 98 Foreign Rotary Nationals in Canberra, Matt Lyles' original Rotary Corolla Enforcer was one of the more interesting cars. But Matt's not new to competition.
We won the Sportsman Championship in the Super Sprint Series, which is a state championship event.
But he wanted something even better, so he built another green Rotary Corolla known as Mr. Enforcer. Although built for circuit racing, not drags, he recently ran an 11.7 second quarter mile at the 2000 Jamboree. The car's first race outing was the Alfa Romeo 6-hour relay at Eastern Creek in November 1999. Racing in the over 3 litre sports sedan category, Matt finished about midway after qualifying in the top 10. So a simple 74 Corolla has now been very efficiently transformed. The engine was the first thing to be replaced, but not by the expected 13B turbo combination. Matt chose the slightly smaller but more reliable 12A turbo again.
We stuck with the 12A in this one because the people that do bag it, there's the guys out there who 12As are a piece of junk. They don't go, well, they do, and have beaten their 13Bs quite a few times.
The standard turbocharger housing uses a T4 front compressor with titanium blades, which offers very little lag. In fact, 15 to 20 pounds of boost comes in from just 2200 RPM. The car was recently dynoed and showed 324 horsepower at the rear wheels at just 10 psi. With bigger injectors, Matt expects 15 psi to generate close to 400 horsepower. The 12A has been extend ported with 3mm steel seals and raised bearings. Surprisingly, the throttle bodies are Mazda originals.
We did stay with the Mazda, like we used the Series 4 non-turbo throttle bodies, used the Mazda 12A inlet manifold, mainly so we could run the throttle pump still. All the butterflies and the guts of the throttle body itself is quite modified. It's just drivability with the throttle pumps coming on, just the car tunes all throughout the rip range, any throttle position. It's smooth to drive, it just does everything as it should.
That drivability is perfect for a circuit racer. The engine runs on half-hour gas and C16 race fuel. Oil is added to the fuel in a 1:70 ratio to eliminate the usual oil injection into the housings. It's all run by a Helter computer. Autosport built the engine, and Matt, a qualified engineer, built almost everything else, including the unique engine mounts which can withstand huge torque loads. The suspension uses front McPherson struts with Coney inserts and adjustable lower control arms, and runs 3 degrees of negative camber. Notice the adjustability of the squat-resistant 4-link rear end. Behind the 17-inch wheels, you'll find the result of Matt's machining skills. These 14-inch discs started life as NASCAR blanks. Matt can fit them to any car. The rear brakes are VS Commodore, and a Willwood adjustable brake bias controls the whole setup.
Maybe it's had of an overkill, but there's brake pedals there all the time, every time. It's firm and it stops. Inside,
the interior was mostly transferred from the previous car, including the huge gear stick that Matt finds easier to locate in a race. On a wet day at Oran Park, the car remained very stable through all the corners. Matt also experimented with a noisy new spoiler kit for future races. But the spoiler kit wasn't needed for a burnout.
It's a pig in the car park, and it's a pig to move out of the workshop. But around the track, it's smooth. It does everything nice. It turns, it stops, it steers. It's good.
One car we've been eager to drive for some time is Nissan's latest GTR v-spec, the R34 edition. Fortunately, Powerplay Imports had a very nice example. They also had a nice Evo 6, but we couldn't pry off the wheel lock. The GTR engine is the familiar RB26 twin-turbo, but with extra torque available earlier in the rev range. It's also smoother and quieter than the R33, and it's now painted red. The 18-inch wheels expose Italian Brembo brakes. Take the cover off the new rear spoiler and you'll find the adjustable wing positions. The v-spec includes a carbon fibre rear splitter, active rear diff and lowered adjustable suspension with strut braces everywhere. This one has also been treated to a full Nismo upgrade, which adds carbon fibre B-pillar, bigger exhaust and alloy gear knob. The standard 14 psi of boost also gets a lift to about 18, pushing it over the 206 kilowatt mark. But the toy that most puts you in a Gran Turismo frame of mind is the central control screen, able to monitor and adjust 8 different engine functions and keep passengers entertained for hours. On the drag strip, the standard GTR should run 13 seconds. This Nismo version managed half a second less and 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.9 seconds. Around the track, the handling is awesome, and now the car is as chuckable as the old R32 used to be. This particular GTR was nearly ready for compliance, and they should be available from PowerPlay by the time you see this, from around 140,000 Australian dollars. Now you may have noticed that we are shooting this GTR from another Skyline, an R33 GTST that we borrowed from Unique Autosport. But after a quiet test drive around the block, we thought we'd better buy it.
Thanks for doing business with Unique Autosports, and I hope you enjoy the car. Bye.
So we drove it off into the sunset, confident we'd made a big impact on them.
Oh, fussy bastard, I'm glad he's gone.
But buying from Unique does get you invited to their regular drive days at Wakefield Park, in the company of some very specialised machinery. On the day we went along, it was a bit of a GTR fest. 9 on the track at the same time was probably an Australian record. The royal blue R33 with a Nismo 400R body kit, Nismo 18-inch wheels and blue painted interior had travelled all the way over from Western Australia. The purple R32 was built with no expense spared by a Japanese workshop called Machina Magic. The two Apexi air filters lead to a couple of large HKS turbos. The Nismo fuel pump feeds the extra 550cc Nismo injectors. The exhaust is a 4-inch straight through. It should be able to produce up to 500 horsepower at the rear wheels, more than double the standard GTR. The small spin shows it does have some limits. This R32 was featured in video too when the owner destroyed a couple of pistons. It goes just fine now. All Skylines were available in Japan as 4-doors as well. This is the R33 version with an owner who won't give up no matter where the car goes. This 200SX, the previous model Silvia, has decent engine mods but needs the front suspension tied down much tighter. Not sure where to cut boost on a Cordia? This might be too much. And this older Silvia could probably benefit from a tighter suspension too. Gavin Lowe from Glow Racing, organisers of Sydney's Auto Expo, brought along his Toyota Twin Turbo. He wasn't too concerned about the GTR on his tail. By the way, if you like the Lexus drifting in video 3, this is his brother driving the GTR. The day wasn't entirely Japanese. This 911 RS had a good run, but when there's a GTR on your tail, you move onto the dirt and let it pass. And don't expect to out-accelerate a 20B RX-7. This 300ZX had the potential to be one of the quickest cars on the track. Unfortunately, the first lap saw the water pump destroy itself. That sent the fan into the radiator, breaking off a blade. He was towed home. What looked like a standard MX-5 turned out to be supercharged, allowing it to keep up with much more powerful cars. There was also a Subaru 22B minus its rear wing, and Mark from Unique Autosports in his own RX-7. Now Mark's not just a competent driver, he's very enthusiastic, and we knew that attaching a camera to his car would only encourage him. But at the end of the day, he felt a big burnout was probably appropriate.
We look after our customers' cars. These are only our own cars.
When you're used to winning trophies for a show car, you just don't expect to see it treated like this. but Shana Ryans MR2 is an impressive all-rounder, even scoring a Hot 4's cover roll. The 19-inch gold wheels probably had something to do with it. The fronts didn't always fit. Even now, after cutting out the inner guards and adding spacers, only slicks will fit and they still rub the bodywork. The turning circle is drastically reduced, so small roundabouts are best avoided. Surprisingly, Shane has plans to fit 20s next. That should make the retro plate come true. Oran Park seemed like a good place to see if its go matched its show. Viewers of the '98 Nationals video might remember Shane's car with its original black paint and the It Rips number plate. It started life as an Australian spec non-turbo model, then added the 3S GTE Series 2 GT engine from Japan with a CT26 turbo and TO4 compressor. With 192 horsepower at 15 psi, Shane's run a quarter mile in 13.4 seconds. However, this engine's about to be thrown in the bin as Shane has bought a new 320 horsepower 2.2 litre engine. Other interesting features include the intake snorkel from Tom's of Japan, water spray for the intercooler, an HKS exhaust, and a feature nitrous bottle in the hood panel with its own display lights and pressure gauge. The nitrous will get connected to the next engine. Inside, nestled into the lush tan leather and perforated aluminium, we found an Alpine TV head unit, 6-stacker CD, a VCD, and a 240-volt converted PlayStation. $2,000 worth of autometer gauges are spread around the car. Some in the modified A-pillar bracket from a 200SX. Notice the interesting air-fuel ratio gauge. There's also M3 mirrors and embossed bumper logos. Out on the track, any performance testing was cut back severely when Shane's brass button clutch started slipping badly. But even without a clutch, you can still take a curve too quickly. Eventually, he could go no further. We'll test this car properly when the new engine is fitted.
Every time we gave it probably over 15 psi, just started slipping way through, so yeah, not much power to the ground, I guess. I was trying to kill the engine for you, but the clutch couldn't keep it down.
Sydney Auto Salon 2000 brought a record crowd of 50,000 enthusiasts to the Homebush Showground to see a huge display of nearly 400 cars. With the DJ scratching live for the first time, the crowd showed plenty of rhythm. With more and more cars using quality airbrushing nowadays, there was plenty of airbrush demonstrations to show how it's done. And if you don't have a spare panel, any body part will do.
It's Free Willy, man, it's Free Willy.
An example of what's being done to sometimes the most unlikely car is this RAV4. We first thought it was a self-portrait of the owner, but apparently it's Joe Camel. We're not sure why either. Another interesting airbrush example was the Slither Pulsar, the snake forming the Triple S logo. The Ooh Baby Exa showed what a cooperative girlfriend and a CA18 Turbo can achieve. Fast 4s had their first showing of their new Satria GTI project car. Bazooka modified this ET with a Cordia grille and other questionable add-ons, but at least the engine will be well ventilated. Many of the promo girls brought along their own cars. Barbie's BMW showed how leather and purple suede can make a voluptuous interior. Girl power was also visible in this cyber charade, with customised taillights, thin chrome bumper pipes and the usual wild cyber body kit. A Galant GSR is not a common sight as a modified car, particularly with a Skyline GTR front bumper. Without front panels, Monster was quite anonymous, revealing a Mitsubishi VR4 motor which wasn't connected to anything. The body was actually a Sigma. Utes and mini trucks found safety in numbers. This American example had a fully adjustable hydraulic system. Another cybercar was the Taken CRX, complete with airbrushed wizard on the dash. Brian L. Hassan's multi-award-winning Honda CRX, no longer called Mr. CRX, but first Mr., showed a few new features including a fiery new interior, but the back of the car got the most attention. Two Perspex tubes full of goldfish, specially bred to appreciate subwoofers and nitrous. This CRX showed a similar fiery theme, but without the deaf fish. Iceboy received plenty of attention thanks to the extreme lowering and the famous full-gloss fiberglass interior. The Honda S2000 Turbo was a surprise, the first turbo conversion in the country. More about this car later. This CRX may be to envy, but we didn't envy his collection of defects and fines. Another SAS surprise this year was the number of Commodores on display. Not usually perceived as particularly high-tech, Blown proved otherwise. Judge, the twin-turbo V8 Ute, was as high-tech as any Japanese car and had big horsepower figures to prove it. We'll feature this car in a future video. The flashy Hyundai from 6th Division showed how you can place an amp anywhere if you don't need to see through the back window. And this is one sick XL with a big intercooler and custom aluminium engine covers. Inside we found a unique suede door and dash treatment, contoured checker plate flooring and some aluminium left over for the centre console. However, some XL owners are only interested in their audio systems. This Hyundai Coupe needed a louder blow-off valve. The solution? Mounted on the outside of the car. Lancer owners seem to like extreme lowering. The most extreme was the Sea Blood Lancer, whose springs were apparently removed for the show. With the change of name to Cannibal, we'll be testing this car later in this video. As the sign says, the pumped up guards on this Mirage achieve a very mean looking wide body effect. Suzuki Swifts are still popular, even after many years on the scene. The See My Toy Swift often picks up Best Engine Bay awards. Mind you, the gauges are a bit of a stretch for the driver. Lair added a unique airbrush design to a classy leather interior. And a few extra tail lights. And of course you can't mention Suzuki's without our baby, perhaps the most outrageous of them all. Our cover car, Defect, always pulls a big crowd. The blue MR2, despite the cynical number plate, showed an interesting interior colour combination. Yamato showed the new Nissan Silvia, complete with 180k speedo and standard pillar-mounted boost gauge. The 200SX on the BD4 stand got our attention with racecar side exhaust, and the engine bay showed why. The GTIR head and a huge Garrett ball bearing turbo wrapped in plastic to keep over 500 horsepower nice and fresh. This RX-7 was very tastefully done up. Subtle but classy. In contrast, there's Def Road. The 20B turbo peeking out under the hood was apparently not connected to anything, but the flashing rotor lights in the seats were a unique touch. David Curry's Liberty RS was on show for the first time. Built by Tony Rigoli, you'll see more of this car later in the video. WRXs weren't exactly rare. High Tech had another impressive airbrushed example. The Bronx was very well detailed, and Rigoli's looked very ordinary, but it is the quickest in Australia. The most impressive WRX eventually won the top trophy. The Osmonds took a jungle theme as far as it could possibly go. No part of the car escaped the airbrush, from the snaky dash to the Jane of the Jungle seat. We hope that's her tail on the driver's headrest. Notice the clever merging of the door trim with the inner and outer door skins. The underside is just as detailed and even extends to the discs and calipers. The Osmond's other cars attracted attention too, but for a different reason. And the weekend ended with the traditional Miss Auto Salon contest.
Down to the final three, folks. It is up to you guys. Casilla. thanks for all of your participation during that, folks.
It was Sydney's BD4s where we eventually found the hyper-tuned Honda S2000 Turbo from the Auto Salon. A first-of-its-kind conversion, it's currently just waiting for pistons and clutch to arrive from Japan. Sporting an HKS intercooler and HKS turbo, it will eventually produce 500 horsepower, which is double its standard power. The compression ratio will be reduced to 8.7 to 1 to allow for a boost of 16 psi on standard unleaded fuel. We'll be testing this car just as soon as it's completed. Also spotted at BD4s was this heavily modified 200SX, also seen at the Sydney Auto Salon. We also found a Corona with a Sora engine, an Evo 4 with an interesting hood vent, a Lancer Coupe with a gold anodised intercooler, Evo 4 engine, plus these unusual brake lights. And the MR2 seen in video number 2. It's now being fitted with a boot-mounted intercooler, twin blower valves and cooling fans underneath. We also discovered this MX-5 Turbo. Viewers of video number 2 might remember the supercharged Corolla, now also turbocharged. The supercharger can now be fully programmed by the HKS electronic controller on the dash. Mark Badwani's CRX was last seen in video 3. It is now being fitted with a Japanese VTEC engine, 400 horsepower ball bearing turbo, Type R inlet manifold and forged pistons. Well-known WRX show car Rextasy was up on the hoist, so we had a peek at the usually unseen underside. It was just as carefully detailed as the engine bay. And outside, a super-guarded BD4's secret new project car. And to prove that middle-aged men in suits are not entirely useless, the 2004 Rotary Nationals was opened by one at the new venue, Wakefield Park in New South Wales. To the usual collection of Go to Woe, burnouts and autocross events, the promoters added the new hill climb event, which tested quite a few drivers who are only used to straight lines. When Baby J went for a baby burnout, he started leaking fuel. Now, as we all know, when you ignore the official advice to get off the track, you take the risk of being seriously pointed at. This neat Pulsar Triple S was well driven throughout the event by Kylie Smith, who eventually won the Queen of Nationals title. Damon Dupre took a close look at one of the top contenders in the sound-off.
Alright, I'm here with Jack Smigolski from JMS Audio in Wollongong. Now Jack's built this little purple charade to break the Australian SPL record.
We've basically made the cabinet as strong as possible using 16mm glass, expanded foam filled doors with 20mm MDF door trims, 32mm MDF full construction inside.
This head unit here, it's a dummy. Also, we reduced the volume, the air capacity inside the car by making a center console as big as we can. The floor is raised up, the roof is brought down. You really need to be quite small to drive this thing in. Really, you can drive it if you put a seat in here.
You'll need pretty small feet to squeeze through the axis hole for the pedals. Lift the lid on the center console and you'll find the gear shift and handbrake. Behind your head you'll feel the delicate sounds of 8 MTX Thunder 15-inch subwoofers. Round the back, 7 2-volt cells power the 5 MTX Blue Thunder amps. Closing the doors takes a bit of time. They all need to be bolted tight.
Alright Jack, let's give this thing a rip and see what it can do. We'll just hit the peak SPL button and see what the highest number was.
167 dB, an unofficial record-breaking result.
See you doing the real competition tomorrow. Have to wait and see. Alright, good luck, man. Okay, here we've found two Datsun 1200 Utes that really caught our fancy. Funnily enough, they've been built by two brothers, or twins, who come from Blacktown in Sydney, and they've done all the work themselves. Now, this one here, well, they've both got FJ20 turbos in them, all engineered at home. This version here uses a 5-speed manual box that came with the engine itself. They've done a really nice job with the detailing. All the wiring's been hidden, everything's been cleaned up and painted. There's nice bolt work everywhere. It's a very nice and neat job. In the front here, they've retained the standard grill, and they've done a little bit of sectioning here to get a nice beginner cooler into the front, which is really nice. This one here is actually run 11.9, makes around about 210 horsepower at the rear wheels. Okay, now the Tiger Orange one is an automatic, not a manual. It uses a C4 gearbox out of a Ford V8, funnily enough, with the transmission cooler mounted in the back of the car right underneath. This one here has been on the dyno, makes around about 190 horsepower at the rear wheels, runs a little bit less boost, but it's probably a little bit easier to drive. Anyway, very nice. I don't know about you guys, but the RX2 Coupe's always been the best shape of the old Rotaries. The cleanest, it's the neatest. The least Japanese, actually. It's more alpha. This one's quite nice also because he's done a reverse McLaren with the seating arrangement. He's got a single seat in the back instead of a bench.
The hill climb event was a challenge for many competitors. Ben Ellis, editor of Hot Fours and High Performance Imports magazines, made it look easy in his Starlet Turbo while saving tyre wear round the corners. Shamey took out the timing unit at the end. Now here's a hint for everyone. If you need someone to close your hood, never get a photographer to do it. Watch the exhaust pipe of this RX-3 for the piece of metal flying out. We have no idea what it was, but the officials weren't game to touch it.
Got the riders.
At the 99 Sydney Motor Show, we drew the winner of the Momo Wheels contest from the last video.
And the winner of the Momo Wheels is Saul Merson of Doncaster East.
Thanks to Roman Autotech, 16-year-old Saul Myerson will be fitting the Momo Arrows to his very first car, a Nissan Micra. But the win made him a little nervous.
On behalf of Roman Autotech, congratulations on your new Momo wheels.
Thank you very much, Momo, and
On behalf of Roman Autotech, congratulations on your new Momo wheels.
thank you, Roman Autotech, and
On behalf of Roman Autotech, we'd like to congratulate you on your new Momo wheels.
thanks, Roman Autotech and Fast Floors Movies for the wheels.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
When he's not practicing soccer, Giovanni Fraggiani drives a unique Mitsubishi Lancer GLI. We first ran into Giovanni a year ago when the car was in an early stage of development. The engine is Mitsubishi's naturally aspirated Myvec 1.6 from the Japanese market Mirage ZR. With a compression ratio of 11:1, peak power of 130 kilowatts or 174 horsepower is developed at 7,700 RPM. Inside, the huge autometer tacho was a necessity. The GLI model Lancer doesn't come with a tacho. Other mods are fairly basic. JetSpeed fitted an Evo 4 style body kit and a big ad for themselves. Listen carefully and you'll hear the Myvac's variable valve timing kick in at 5,500 RPM. After a couple of hesitant laps of Oran Park, our pro driver Rod Turnbull took over. It was about time for Giovanni to jump in.
140 k's.
I like that.
keep drying your hands there, Giovanni?
No, I'm just hot.
You want to drive one?
If you don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind. Your car,
you want to come?
No.
I can show you.
You're going to scare me?
No.
The Lancer looks so good with all the body kit, the Evo 4 front end, that really the MVEC engine's a big disappointment. The engine note changes at $5,000, but that's all that changes. There's no more power. It doesn't sit you back in the seat. So when it gets the engine transplant with the turbo, maybe this car will be a bit better, but at the moment it really needs some more grunt.
I think we're going to rebuild the whole thing again.
And that's exactly what he did. 12 months later, the MVEC engine has a coat of red paint and a few plastic panels removed. More importantly, the 1.6 was stroked to 1.8. It now sports a TO3 ball-bearing turbo and develops more than 250 horsepower at 16 pounds of boost. There was now plenty of power. On a wet track at Oran Park, maybe too much. Time for Rod to test it again.
First thing that needs some attention, I think, the brakes, because it's much faster now, Giovanni.
The ability of the rear drums and small front disc to stop this kind of performance soon became a worry.
We're out of brakes. We are completely out of brakes. You kidding? No. Oh, no handbrake.
Well, what a transformation. This car has gone from being a very timid, very basic sort of car to drive to having huge amounts of horsepower. It comes on boost with a great big rush, but the big problem I'm finding with it, it's still got standard brakes. They're probably on fire now as we speak. So we just did a fairly quick lap, ran out of brakes at the end of the straight, and then Giovanni says, there's a switch down here, I can push that, we'll get another 10 pounds boost, should I do it? So why not? So we did. So once again we ran out of brakes at the end of the straight, but it handles really sweetly now. It's got plenty of horsepower, but just can't stop it.
So still in the mood for Lancers, but with the track getting wetter by the minute, it was time to bring in a four-wheel drive, a GSR with an Evo 3 upgrade.
Originally the car is C Blood, Abel Wackrats from Hypersound owned it, offered him a hefty amount and ended up buying the car.
New owner Adam Fisher probably did quite well out of the deal.
He spent over $100,000 on the car while he owned it, and it got it running to potential, but it just needs little finishing touches.
Adam's previous car was this Mirage called Volt. Adam removed the door handles so that the doors could be opened using the mirrors. Didn't stop it from being stolen though. The payout went towards the new car. So back to the GSR. The yellow leather interior takes some getting used to, but the most interesting bit was the dash. You don't normally find all the gauges fully integrated. It's been entirely remoulded using a fiberglass base over the original dash and then reskinned. The tacho is built in where the vent used to be, and the new vent below it was regrafted from the left-hand side.
The car's actually running still standard drivetrain, gearbox, diffs, the whole lot, no gearing's been changed. It also runs standard brakes as well, so it's fairly simple to replace if it ever gets broken, and so far nothing, only a transfer case is busted, and yeah, it seems to be holding up so far.
The audio system had no expense spared either. Two 5.5-inch splits were moulded into the new dash behind a yellow cover, which is removed when driving in case the reflections make you run off the road. In the back, weighing 250 kilograms, you'll find two 15-inch MTX subs and two MTX 300-watt amps behind 1-inch thick perspex. There's so much power, it's buckled the roof. Driving on a slippery track is always tricky, but the extra 250 kilos in the tail can unsettle it very quickly. Hitting the brakes as it starts to slide doesn't help. So Rod jumped in for his turn. Having watched Adam's previous spin, he aimed for the same corner. Notice how he doesn't brake when the rear lets go, but steers it through. The GSR 1.8 litre engine has had 40 grand spent on it. The high-flowed turbo is from an early Cordia, boosted to 30 psi. With a 10:1 compression ratio and forged pistons, there's over 200 horsepower at the wheels. Another 4 injectors under the manifold are activated at 4,000 RPM. They allow the fuel gauge to move as quickly as the tacho. The 3-inch exhaust is from the turbo back. Chasing an Evo 6, which we'll see more of later, Rod finally found the Lancer's limits. And another chance to practice for Rally Australia.
It's got different brands of tyres, front to rear, and when I first started driving it was handling quite neutral. It would even oversteer a little bit into the corner, but now the front tyre's gone completely off and it just won't turn into corners, getting a massive amount of understeer. So when I sort of flick it at the corner, try and turn it in, I've just sort of spun myself off the road into the dirt then, and just put the cheap rally graphics on it for him for no extra charge.
I think he'll be getting the sponges out soon.
Next we tried dragging the GSR against the Myvec, without much success. On the first run, Giovanni missed second gear. On the next one, he couldn't overcome the front wheel spin in all the rain. An easy win to Adam. On a dry track, the GSR has run the quarter in 11.7 seconds on street tyres. To offer the GSR some serious competition, we brought along the new Evo 6. These aren't easy to come by. There's only about 5 in the country. Standard, the 2-litre turbo produces 276 horsepower. This one's been slightly modified by Ralliart with bigger intercooler pipes, custom airbox and a 3-inch mandrel bent exhaust from the turbo back.
Well, Adam's car had a lot of power and the handling was okay for the first couple of laps, but very soon the front tyres went right off and the car was very unpredictable to drive. This car's basically standard, but having seen it on the track already, I expect it to handle really, really nicely and go very sweetly, so we'll see how she goes. One word that springs to mind with this car is it's absolutely faultless. You can throw it into a corner, have a controlled power slide, or you can just drive it. If you get into a little bit of trouble, it just drives straight out of the corner. It is absolutely fantastic, and its performance is startling. I can't believe it's basically a standard motor. It's almost as quick as the GSR. We'll see in a moment. We'll have a drag and just see how quick it is.
Quick it might be, but not quick enough to catch the GSR, even with the weight of its stereo gear.
It just feels so predictable, so easy to drive. It's really a fantastic motor car. I love it. I want one. 75 grand.
The Adelaide car show we visited last year had plenty of unique sights. There was even a few cars. This RX-7 had interior made from wetsuit material. Tim Frost's immaculate Celica won the Car of the Show award. Tim was impressed.
Yeah, stoked, absolutely stoked.
We went for a cruise around Adelaide with the guys from Japanese Motorsport. car that most impressed was Ben Siedel's R100. The 13B power plant is from a Series 5 RX-7. It makes 222 kilowatts at the rear wheels with 20 pounds of boost. The water injection for the intercooler is no longer used as it was too messy on the drag strip. Now he buys blocks of ice. Ben's R100 is South Australia's quickest rotary. He managed an 11.7 while we were there, but has since run 10.7 at 125 miles per hour. New Zealand's 99 foreign Rotary Nationals were a bigger success than ever before, with a huge increase in visitors. They saw some unique machinery plus the first overseas appearance of the Pack Performance racing team. The drag started when the burnout irrigation system got switched on. There was a good assortment of rotaries, fours, rear-wheel drives and front-wheel drives. The early qualifier races teamed up a few odd combinations, including these identical Mitsubishi VR4s. The crowd waited patiently for the pack demo. They weren't disappointed when the guys hit the track with the RX2. The RX3 was next, but unfortunately George didn't realise his toast was burning. To see what it's like from the inside, here's Rocky in the RX2. The parachute release is in the roof above him. The first quarterfinal paired a WRX with an RX3. WRX1 with a 13.1. Next up saw the RX7 take on the Integra. After a late start, there was no stopping the Integra, and he took a win with a 12.6. The third quarter-final saw an MR2 Turbo meet Godzilla Jr., the GTIR. A good win for Justin with a 12.5. The last quarter saw the big R33 Skyline take on the RX3 Underdog. With the best run yet, the Skyline pulled an 11.99. Big things were expected from Justin and Reese in the two Nissans for the first semi-final. But a missed gear by Reese in the Skyline blew his chances at the title. The second semi saw the WRX meet the Integra. But four-wheel drive just couldn't help the WRX as the Integra took another win. The playoff for third and fourth gave the Skyline one last chance to show its potential.
That's a much better launch this time. Let's see if we can get one of those 11-second passes again.
The 11.7 was the quickest of the day, better late than never. The grand final saw the front-wheel drive Integra up against another four-wheel drive, the Pulsar. This time it was Ronnie's turn to miss a gear, and Justin won the day. All that was left was the bike stunts to keep the crowd amused. And just like the cars, try to finish with a bang. It's the LA County Fairground and the security force is on the job. If you can get through this search, there's still a metal detector waiting before you reach the California import show-offs. Hundreds of heavily modified late model Japanese cars vied for our attention, like this wide-bodied Honda Civic or this four-door Integra with a mystery front end. Hard to believe, but the Supra front end hides a Mazda MX-5, complete with vertical hinge doors, retro interior and Supra taillights. Here's a real Supra with a fat body kit. This Baleside Integra doesn't go out much at night. No lights. There's Supra lights on the rear, but inside, white paint everywhere. One TV screen not enough? There's two more up the front. Don't be fooled by the Silvia headlights. It's yet another Integra. And a nitrous bottle makes a great prop for the carbon fibre hood. Here's a CRX with 200SX headlights and a surprisingly well-matched NSX rear end. Speaking of rear ends, here's Fast 4th US photojournalist Jim Maxwell practicing his powers of persuasion. These are Nissan Bluebird taillights on the CRX, or Del Sol as it's known in the US. Standard Prelude, not with these skyline lights at the back. Not a bad modification from a distance. Bit rough on closer inspection. Surely the Accord is standard. Nope, more skyline taillights. And again on this other Accord. Are these guys buying in bulk? Most owners throw money at their cars, but few decorate with it. Who said money doesn't grow on trees? Dave Lemon's Mastertrix RX-7 was one of the genuine race cars on display. The door-mounted exhausts would burn a few kneecaps. When he left to pick up a burger, he added a door-mounted muffler too. Ed Bergenholtz showed his unibody CRX, a 9-second package. There'll be a whole story on this car in the next video. All the front-wheel drive race cars seem to use wheelie bars. We'll cover that trend in the next video too. In a trip back to the future, someone brought along a DeLorean. the show's over, everyone heads off for a cruise. If your trophy won't fit through the sunroof, find someone with a convertible. It's nothing special to look at, but Dominic and Robert Rogoli's early model WRX is Australia's quickest four-wheel drive and possibly the world's quickest WRX. There's no real secret to it. You get Tony Rogoli to start with a stroke 2.2 litre engine, forged pistons, steel conrods and a standard head. You add a $5,500 Turbonetics turbo boosted to 35 psi. Then try a custom front intercooler. 6 800cc injectors from a Series 6 RX-7, a Microtech computer and external coil packs. Add a 10 litre aluminium fuel tank and you'll see 448 horsepower at all four wheels. That's over 600 at the flywheel. At the recent Queensland Jamboree, the WRX ran a record-breaking run of 10.48 seconds at 122 miles per hour. Trouble is, everyone wants to take him on, even on a wet track where a four-wheel drive has a definite advantage. First up was Mr. Enforcer, who has the power but not the traction. But Robert still wasn't entirely happy.
Well, I'm going to try and take off on less boost until I get into second, and then my friend's going to turn it up while I'm trying to concentrate on holding it straight.
Next up was Cannibal, another four-wheel drive. But under pressure, Adam misses second gear. A rematch was called. A good run by Adam, but the two-man driving team in the WRX had more top end. So what's up next? That's no ordinary VL Commodore. The head may say Holden, but Shane Parker's boosted RB30 is pure racing Nissan. At 25 psi, he can find 412 horsepower at the rear wheels. But that nitrous sticker is only a sticker.
He's got a bit of power. I think he's running 11.5. Or at 11.7, so it wouldn't be a bad run.
On a dry track it wouldn't be a bad run, but today he didn't stand a chance. Maybe a burnout will dry it out a bit. Another four-wheel drive was probably the way to go, and this Liberty of David Curry's was also built by Tony Rogoli. With the same stroke 2.2 litre engine, it's been dynoed at 14 psi to achieve 414 horsepower at the rear wheels. It's about 100 kilograms heavier than the WRX, but more stable. And unlike the WRX, it was built more as a drive everyday street car. Plus, it has a more interesting number plate. Here's one for you. At the recent Jamboree, David ran a best time of 11.4 seconds. But today, David first had to run against Adam's Lancer. Again a win to Subaru thanks to greater top-end power. Time for both Subarus. But trouble struck early.
Well, it spun in first, and when I got into second, he blew second gear. Just like that. Just like that.
So with the Liberty gone, we had to look around for something more exotic. Packing 530 horsepower from its 5.7 litre V12, the Lamborghini Diablo VT sure looked the part. The owner was Stephen, who drove the red four-wheel drive Diablo back in video number 1.
You don't need it really a four-wheel drive. This out-handles the four-wheel drive, believe it or not.
We believe it. The sheer grunt was incredible and the wet track fishtailing was quite entertaining. But we finally got out of him the real reason for going rear-wheel drive.
So I can do burnouts.
Come on.
So after a quick warm-up lap with Robert, it was time for the drag. There wasn't too much in it. A dry track may have seen the Diablo win, but for now, Robert was still unbeaten. What he needs is a good rotary. Ivan Mikak races this Series 5 RX-7 in the Australian Sports Sedan Championship, placing 4th last year against mainly V8s. The engine is a naturally aspirated 20B peripheral port, making over 450 horsepower. Robert was finally beaten, but he felt he needed one more chance.
The race on this side this time, it's got more traction. He beat you. He chopped me. I've got to give him some more boost now.
He obviously didn't have the traction, but he had a lot of top end there.
Yeah, he had big top end. But I don't know, I spun a fair bit then. I think my co-driver hit boost too early. He got a bit excited.
On the next run, Robert looked like he had the RX-7 until his gearbox jammed and Ivan shot past for the second time. The 20B for me plates probably give it away, but Lance Warren of Cosmo fame decided to celebrate with a burnout in the company Commodore V8. With his gearbox now repaired, Robert surprised everyone with his sudden arrival. He left the way he came, but we moved a few cars out of the way just in case. And just when we thought he was looking for a car space, he did it again. It's nice to be appreciated.
Well, you happy with that?
Pretty happy with it, yeah. Hope your brother's happy with it. I told him I was going to do 4-wheel drive helis and he said don't even dare. And the car's still driving, that's the main thing. Don't have to tow it home.
Thanks.